landscaper by trade and gardener, and so this for me is breathing. I'm lucky enough that I can spend my work life doing the sacred thing that I love the best, which is agriculture and horticulture. Horticulture is just a subdivision of agriculture. Agriculture is like the bigger picture of plants. It includes food, it includes horticulture, which is like gardening for pleasure or whatever. So what do I mean by sacred agriculture? As I said, like, to me, I'm graced by being able to work in the field that is the most sacred to me, which is agriculture. But really working with the earth is sacred, no matter what you're doing. It's unintentionally sacred. Like, you can't really not be sacred while you're gardening, because that's just kind of a part of that, of the nature of nature, if you will. Being out in nature, being just outside generally with plants and animals and bugs and all that kind of stuff. We forget, because especially here in South Florida where it's so hot, we run from one air-conditioned spot to another, whether it's our house to our car to a shop or whatever. Though lately, of course, with this COVID thing going on, everybody's spending a little more time gardening. But a lot of us, we kind of forget how sacred the world is around us. And so for me, sacred agriculture is being more mindful and intentional with our interactions. There's nothing wrong with unconscious interactions, but to make it help us more, to be something that can be beneficial to us on a deeper level than just physical health, being intentional with how we work with the earth, with nature, can bring us great joy and groundedness and solace. I don't know about any of y'all, but when I'm really, really upset, I go outside and hug my oak trees, and I feel better. I feel better. Or I go outside and I smell the beautiful herbs in my garden, or the roses, or I see the birds, and it stops me from being sad, at least in that moment. So I think that, and in those moments, I become more conscious and more connected. And I do think that if you do this all the time, you probably already are doing it sacredly, because it's like it is definitely like you begin doing it intentionally, but then it becomes a part of who you are, that connection. Like, so when you go outside, you don't have to light a candle, you don't have to have an altar. They're fun, and I love those things, and there's a place for that, and that is especially helpful in the beginning to help you get that connection that you might want, so it's really focused. But really, once you, especially in your own yard, once you get connected to that, it becomes more second nature, and you miss it when you don't get it. It's an energy exchange between you and nature, and it's necessary for human health, I think. And also scientists think that. There's many, many different new and wonderful, or maybe they're old and rediscovered, therapeutic systems, such as forest bathing. Forest bathing is walking into the woods intentionally and being open to receive the energy from nature that's around you. So now, I'm really kind of speaking now to home vegetable gardens, but you can see how that can easily be transferred into your own vegetable garden. That awe, that wonder, that sense of like connection and feelings of really peace and groundedness that help us weather all the storms of life. You know what I mean? Like, if we have a nice, solid, steady, spiritual inner life and connection to the earth, that helps us with all the crazy that the world has to offer us. So I think that is really, for me, what sacred agriculture is. It's spending that time to get that connection. And I know that sometimes, especially when it's the hottest in the summertime and it's hard to go and be out in nature just because it's so freaking hot, I like, okay, I know in the morning, early in the morning, our birch loves it when it's this hot. But I know that I still need to go do that. And I do feel like I feel better when I walk out there and I connect. And I have my yard, which you'll see a little bit of in this PowerPoint. I have a section where it's a little bit sunnier, so I have my herbs and vegetables and my edibles over kind of in that space. But the rest of my yard, and many of you have been to my house, you know, it's kind of like the woods. With intent. I mean, when I bought this house, it was not the woods. It was like ugly Aurelia hedge and stuff that wasn't really grass and was more weeds, which I like them. They're wildflowers. The bees love them, you know. So now, though, I actually this year got red starts, American red starts in my yard, and I was like, I'd never seen them before. So I looked up what the bird was, and I found out that that bird goes into the woods. So if you don't have a lot of woods-like stuff around your house, you're probably not going to see an American redstart in your yard. Mm-hmm. So understanding how to create in your own yard a sacred space like that, and knowing that it's completely reciprocal. It's completely, you do this and it does this for you, but you got to do it or nothing will happen. That's where the intention comes in, right? So knowing all of this stuff and understanding the cycles of the seasons, it's different here than it is in California, than in New York, than in Canada, than in, you know, the Pacific Northwest. We, down here in South Florida, you know, we really have a much longer growing season for food crops than they probably do in just about any other state in the United States, except for maybe Hawaii and California and Texas, maybe even some of the southern states. But even in Georgia, it's zone 8, so they actually can get snow, which means that there's freezes, which means that there's lots of things that they cannot extend into their wintertime that we have a flip-flop here in South Florida, right? Our winter time is our summertime in the north, right? And our summertime is so hot, it's kind of like the hot winter because it's just so overpowering and overwhelming. And like you might get your tomato plants to grow, but they ain't gonna be a tomato on them things because it's so hot and tomatoes can't set. It'll even produce flowers, but the fruit's not gonna set. So understanding all of that, understanding how those cycles impact your vegetable or herb growing season. And vegetables can be either perennial, which means that they're things that grow from season to season, and they last for several years or a lot of years. And annual, which many food crops are annual. So you plant them, tomatoes, peppers, you know, basil, those are all annual type things that you have to consistently replant in your garden. So, but you have to understand like those combinations of the seasons in your area and also what the plants need. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about engaging the spirits of the earth and Mother Earth herself. I don't know if y'all noticed, but here on my right, I have a little Gaia picture here. I have a little Gaia altar set up over here for us for this evening. I love altars. I think they're really important and useful in helping us focus our energies and our intentions. And a garden is no less magical than anywhere else. And it's definitely a place where the gods, goddesses, spirits of you know, nature all are really wanting to be around, and they love having altars, I think, built to them in those places to honor them. Most of the time I will have several different altars going in my yard at once for various different things. But my vegetable and herb garden, I definitely will not only have an altar, and you know, I'm not going to give you guys lessons in altar building. There's many books out there. It's one of my favorite things to do. It's very personal. It really should make you happy. Screw everybody else. It's really about you and what you're trying to accomplish. And because I think spirituality is so individual, and I know that I have friends that honor the same deities that I do, and sometimes we'll get together and we'll think, oh yeah, we'll do that for this particular thing, and we all have completely different ideas on how we should do that. And you know what? That's okay. Makes it more spice of life. Learn from those things. But do altars in your spaces to please you and how you feel that you will please the gods and the goddesses. and the spirits of nature. I love research. There's tons and tons of books and websites out there that you can look up if you don't already have a connection to a god or goddess that deals with, say, fertility or farming or gardening or nature or the wild. All those different gods and goddesses and nature spirits can be appropriate for you. And to me, being pagan is about place, so it is about where you are and the gods and goddesses that are from the place where you are standing. I mean, our spirituality is very much ultimately grounded in the physicalness that we are physical beings, so we have no choice, right? So it's not that I don't, obviously, as y'all know, I like all cultures, and I honor gods and goddesses from pretty much across the world, and they're wonderful. And especially when you are honoring, I practice the fairy tradition, so obviously I spend a lot of time chatting with the fairies, so it's kind of easier for me out in the garden to just call up a few fairy spirits and have them come and join me in the garden dancing around. But if you're just starting, you might, just go outside and sit in your garden and see who comes to you. Do a little research on that god or goddess or that spirit. That kind of, maybe that can help you make a choice on who. But don't feel shy. Research only helps you focus yourself even more than you might have already been, because it helps you. It's like, excuse me for 1 second. I think for me, research helps me to narrow down what I'm trying to achieve, because I like everybody and everything. And so I would have a very, very, very busy altar, perhaps not very focused if I took that track. So sometimes doing that research can help you narrow down what you really are trying to focus on doing. And sometimes we meet new gods and goddesses that way too, so it can be kind of fun. And then, once you've done your research, understand what they like, what colors they like, what numbers they like, any other kinds of things that they might like, food, times of the year. Maybe if they're very traditional, they might have an actual feast day, or not. I always say need is the most pressing spiritual focus that you can have. So sometimes you just gotta ask who's present and hope for the best as well. So, but if you have the opportunity to do that bit of research, it can definitely enhance and amplify your workings in the garden, and also give you some time, some focuses for like meditation, because gardens are really fantastical for that. Once you got your garden going and you have all that beautiful, lovely energy in there, meditation can be a really excellent extra part of gardening. All right. So let's go on to the next slide here. So do y'all remember hearing in elementary school that you are what you eat?
Mm-hmm.
So you are what you eat on every level, whether it's spiritual food or physical food or mental food. So I think gardening, and especially vegetable gardening and herb gardening, things that we're going to actually take in, or magical gardening. I mean, most of us witches have lots of herbs that we use for magical purposes that are maybe inedible or that we wouldn't use for eating. Maybe they don't, they're not so fantastic or whatever, not tasty. So being able to understand that all of this is about, you're eating, you're giving yourself sustenance. And also usually when you garden, you have way more than you know what to do with, so you're also sustaining others because you give the fruits of your labors away, right? And that comes in many forms too, whether it's handing someone like bananas and mangoes and having a good chat where you both get to, you know, feel better about life, generally speaking, at least for half an hour in the daytime. You know what I'm saying?
And eat mangoes.
Huh?
And eat mangoes.
And eat mangoes, yes. We eat mangoes a lot. Well, I think all of us here love mangoes, so yeah. Not hard. My sister took those mangoes with her to my dad's asana.
Oh, okay.
So, knowing that our gardens, our yards, whatever it's sacred. I mean, it's sacred without you doing nothing. You don't have to do anything for it to be sacred. Really, you're participating in the sacredness of that space. You are also sacred, so you're sharing your sacredness with that space which is sacred. My own personal philosophy is everything is sacred. What is not sacred? Seriously. Think about that long and hard. Everything is sacred, even if I don't like it. Even if I don't like it. And I think that when we forget about that sacredness, that's when we start losing connection. So I think that's how we see in society this disconnect between people and, you know, not understanding how to help each other and heal each other and nourish each other. And I think this can help us be able to be more available, but also have the strength to shut down when necessary. Because there's a winter there's always winter where it's okay to like go back into your shell and hibernate for that time to regain your strength and energy for the spring to come. So anyway, so I really, as you all know, I'm an elementalist, so I love the elements, earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. They flow through and connect everything in the universe. And for me personally, I find that, not that it's an absolute, but it definitely is a really good way to help me successfully and logically for myself navigate the world. So with earth energy, putting your hands into soil, that's so healing. The mycorrhizae in the soil are actually things that help human immune systems to be strong. And I think that human disconnection from being in nature and doing gardening and stuff, that's why we see so much illness in the world, right? Because we don't realize that everything is interconnected, especially in urban areas where people are, like I said, I'm a landscaper and a landscape designer, so I go out there and I go, why did you plant that poor tree in that space? It's a bad idea. The tree is too big for the space. There's no, our lack of understanding of that, to me, that's like a reflection of that lack of understanding, that we are so disconnected from the things around us that we don't care, because those people know. And our city planners, this is city stuff, when they put that oak tree in the middle of the frickin', little median in the middle of the road that's 4 feet wide, that's not big enough for an oak tree. That's a disconnect between humans and the rest of nature. So I totally encourage everybody to be connected, because we are more healthy. I haven't had a cold in probably 4 or 5 years. I honestly believe partially that's due to the fact that I stick my hands in the soil almost every day. So I might be crazy, but I'm physically going to last for a really long time, good or bad. So hands in the soil, it's grounding, and it's very healing. Like fresh food. Fresh food is so important to healthy body, healthy mind, and it also connects you with earth energy, which is very important for all kinds of stuff, right? For prosperity, for health, for connection, for the practical everyday things that we need to survive, right? Our homes, clothes on our back, jobs, all that kind of stuff. So just talking about if you don't already have it, well, actually, you know what? A garden is never static. A garden is always evolving. A garden, the plants never stay the same size when you plant them. You know, we plant small things. We don't plant giant mature trees, right? We plant saplings, or we plant smaller shrubs, or we plant whatever, but it's always on the smaller side, right? So that planning, that research that I was suggesting, that connects you and with your intellect to air energy. So this helps you like really focus that part of yourself, that communication and thought and forward thinking, how am I going to do this? So planning your garden helps you with connecting with air energy. And then once you've planned it, that actual action of creating the space, so say, I know that when I got to my house, there was like just weeds all in the space where I have my garden now, and that was a lot of energy to weed all that stuff. And also every season when I finish, you know, I have to take out all the old plants, and when I'm putting the plants in for the new year. So this is all fire energy. This is, you know, that physical energy and focus and concentration it takes to connect with the earth. And you get to really connect with that passion and fire energy when you're doing that part of it. And then when you're caring for your garden, when you're watering your plants, this is, I don't know about y'all, but this is something that's very soothing for me to go out there to water my plants. That's like such a meditative, relaxing, calm, like at the end of the day or at the beginning of the day, so it's not like a jarring start. You know, you can go out there and just, okay, let me go with the flow. I got this nice. So that helps you, that caring for your garden, that watering your garden, it's soothing and it connects you to that water energy that helps us all to heal, that helps us mentally and emotionally, helps us to feel in a positive way. So this helps you connecting with that. And then all this gardening that we spent all this time talking about, all this gardening, so it's very intentional, it's very desire driven, because we want a garden, right? We want beautiful flowers, we want yummy food. Some of us want connection to the earth, and we want to be that, you know, that is our I guess bridge to the spiritual realm. For me, I've been so lucky to be able to incorporate my real life mundane self with my spiritual self. So that really is like that desire and that intention that connects us with the divine, with the spirit, right? I'm spirit and you're spirit, and we're all spirit. All the animals are spirit. There is spirit everywhere, and this really helps us connect on that level with all of those beings, with pollinators, with bees, with birds, with the raccoons that we want to kill sometimes because they wrecked our garden, with the possums, you know. I mean, this is all a part of the whole, they have their place. And when we connect in the garden, we have our place also. And it helps us, I think, to see what our place is. It helps us to be a part of it and connect to it in a non-scary way. Because it's so visceral, it's so here and physical and, you know, here and now. Sorry, Sarah, I just grabbed her leg. So, sacred, like, why you practice? For all these reasons. So it's practical, it's impractical, it's spiritual, it's intellectual, it's, you know, it's emotional. It's all of these things coming together in one fantastical place that really, at the end of the day, like, you get so much out of it. Like, don't know why. I know why everybody wouldn't want to, right? So here's a little practical talk about, I gave a little bit about this, agriculture in South Florida. So if you live anywhere from Palm Beach to Miami-Dade counties, you live in zones 10A through 11. If you're in the Keys, you're probably in zone 12 because that's where the tropics start. Zone 12 is where the tropics start. In California, I'm not sure what you guys are, but I'm going to guess it's probably 9 or maybe 10 in the very southern tip of California, but probably all the way up to, I would say, 7 up in northern, maybe 6 in northern California. So the zone, hardiness zones indicate that the plants in those areas can tolerate how much cold weather. So the higher the number, the less cold weather they can handle. So zone 10, A and B, which is Palm Beach and Broward counties, we cannot handle, so they are, yeah, that's about right. Oh, maybe Southern California actually might be even like us, only dry. The very southern part of California where it connects with Mexico.
10A, a lot of 10A, 10B.
Up in the northern part, it's actually up into 6. Northern, in the northern end, the very north, like the northeast of California, it looks like it's about 6A, and then it goes all the way down to in the south. So that's like a huge range of temperatures. And that's important because the plants know. And that's why it's useful to know this kind of stuff. But here in South Florida, Dade and Palm Beach and Broward counties were 10, 10A, 10B, and 11. 11 is mostly Miami-Dade County. So this means that we have more warm days every year, and we don't frost. There's no frost here. It never gets below 32 degrees. And that's freezing point. And that means that there's plants that can handle frost and that can't handle frost, which means that in the wintertime, since we don't get below freezing, that's why we can have food crops at that time of the year. Because most food crops can take, unless they're tropical fruits and vegetables like papayas and mangoes and things like that, but your average temperate garden vegetable, like say a carrot, or a potato. Not sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes are tropical things. Things like parsnips. Even some of the herbs and vegetables. Even tomatoes can take a little bit, not freezing. They can't take frost, but they can take up to frost. So the reason, like I say, the reason that this is important is because you have to know what plants will survive here. Otherwise, you're going to be terribly disappointed and waste a lot of money and energy and be frustrated. I know because I've done it. When I was a young gardener, I made all the mistakes for y'all. So I'm trying to help you not make these silly mistakes that I made. So our agricultural wheel of the year here in South Florida, we really kind of start in July and August prepping our garden beds. You can see the picture in the slide there. That's my vegetable garden about 7 years ago. But I started my vegetable garden in earnest. Like up until then, I had just potted plants and stuff like that, but I just decided to go all out crazy and really go nuts. So this was prep that I did. Cleaned everything up. But also in July and August, like in Florida, we have nematode problems, which nematodes are in the soil. They're microscopic critters in the soil. And especially in very neutral or alkaline soils, which we usually have pretty high alkaline soils, or not acid, because we have sand and phosphorus, you know, like limestone is very phosphorus. So nematodes will eat the roots of your plants and destroy them. So in July, and any other kind of bugs or weed seeds and stuff like that, in July and August, in that space there, I would put black plastic with some bricks on top of it so that the sun can bake all of the critters out of that soil. So at the end of August and early September, when I start planting out my seedlings, they're not going to get their little roots nibbled on by the nematodes. So those are the kinds of things that you would do to prepare. So July and August. Usually by the end of August, I'm planting seeds for things like tomatoes, Some of the more heat tolerant annuals, like herb annuals that can, cause like, I don't know if y'all realize, like basil sometimes in the summertime, that stuff just, it's like, it's too hot. I'm sorry, I'm done. No matter how much you water it, it still can't handle the heat. So you have to that's like our winter is hot instead of cold. So you have to be conscious about how much heat the actual plants can take. So by the end of September though, and early October, gardens are in full swing. Farmers in Homestead and Palm Beach and even Broward, there's not many left in Broward County, but there's still a few around. They're all planting all their seasonal crops now. So this is tomatoes, they're putting in corn, they're putting in all kinds of stuff. By the end of October, everything's in. But we have 3 springs here. So really September, December, and February are 3 times of the year that I start new crops of things. So like September, I don't do things like lettuce, because they just can't handle, even the October heat is a little much for them, unless you can do like some kind of like hydroponic thing. But putting them in the garden can be very stressful on them because it's just so hot and humid and they really just can't take it. So I'd wait for those until like December. So, and there's other cooler weather vegetables, like you can plant potatoes and carrots and things like that in December and February that really probably wouldn't take it the September planting. But really we have here herbs and vegetables growing all the way from September through to the end of April, and if you're lucky into May. And if you really do research, you can see there's lots of tropical things also that you can grow here in the summertime, things like sweet potatoes, papayas. Papayas live for about 3 to 4 years, so the whole tree, that's why they kind of produce like crazy. So they're technically perennial, but they're short-lived perennials because they don't live for very long. Anyway, there's lots. I mean, I could go on for hours about the particulars of this kind of stuff, but I just really wanted to give you all an overview. And then there is this PowerPoint is in a handout form with resources for South Florida in terms of like research, as well as places to get seeds and local places that actually grow herbs and vegetables too. We'll get to that. So it's time to start your garden. Some little tips on how to start your garden so that you don't sort of spin your wheels. And if you haven't done this before, sometimes it's a little overwhelming because there's lots of things to do, but it also has to be in a particular kind of order, or you will be, you might have some trouble. So first thing you really need to do is assess your yard and determine what you're going to put in your yard. So when I say assess your yard, you need to know how much light is in the area that you're planting your garden. If it's for herbs and vegetables, especially for vegetables, full sun is usually is kind of necessary. Know what the soil conditions are. Do you have very alkaline soils? You can amend them and make them more acid with things like compost and things like that. Understanding, is it really dry or is it a wet spot? Knowing that is very important so that you know what kind of plants to plant. And I always suggest make sure you don't put your garden somewhere like way back in the back of your yard so you forget it's there. I know with our workaday world, everybody's so busy. And so sometimes it's easy to forget to like water the garden, or
you forget you have a pumpkin growing somewhere.
Yeah. I have okra that I have not harvested yet because I keep forgetting it's there, and every time I go out there the okra's too big, and it's like big, and when it gets big it's kind of tough and stringy. So I'm like, I've got all these beautiful okra plants with lots of okra on it, but it's too old, so I keep forgetting because I put it somewhere I don't walk by very often. So I'm not even following my own advice. Terrible, isn't it? Also, easy access to water. So making sure you have a hose, either that's long enough or that is close to your wherever. Otherwise, you're going to spend all your time dragging that stupid hose around. Once you know what the conditions are in your yard, you can decide what kind of vegetables and herbs you want to grow. So this is where a little bit of research on what the herbs and vegetables need, like how much light do they need. Some things can take morning sun, or they like bright filtered light, or sometimes they need full sun. So knowing what those plants need is really important to have in a successful garden. And then keep in mind, growing things from seed is a little bit more involved than buying like starter plants. I do both. It really depends on how busy and or lazy I am any given year. But they're both perfectly fine, whichever way you want to go. So once you've decided kind of like where you're going to put it and what kind of things you want to grow, you need to figure out how big a space you have so that you know how many plants you can actually have. Because lots of plants have different ultimate growth sizes. So like tomatoes can be huge, but like a pepper plant is not that big. So knowing how big the plants are, you'll know how much space you need for each of those plants that you're going to have. So this is the part where you really get down to the nitty-gritty of figuring out what you're going to do in your garden. And I recommend highly drawing out what you're going to do beforehand. Not that it's just like it should be a flexible plan as opposed to like the ultimate thing, but it just helps you to have a more logical way, because you don't want to put like thyme behind a rosemary plant because you'll never see the thyme, and then you'll forget it's there, and actually it'll probably be too shady, so it'll die. So knowing how the plants grow, what sizes they're going to be, you can use your spaces in your beds a little bit more effectively, knowing you should put shorter things in the front and taller things in the back so that you can have room for everything. And really, you can get a lot of stuff into a small space if you plan it right. I do a combination of gardening. I have in-ground gardening, I have raised beds, and I have potted plants. So there's no right or wrong way, to be honest. It's really more about what's good for you, convenient for you. I mean, if you only have a balcony or something like that in an apartment, obviously potted plants are going to be your option. But if you're lucky enough to have a home and you have some garden space, you might be able to, get it in the ground. But just be creative in how you do this, for sure. And then once you got your space all measured and you've got your plans all made, the final thing is, of course, to get everything together and kind of know what to do, like what to do when. So that part of that planning is going to be helping you to know, prep your garden, start your seed flats or small pots or whatever, or if you're going to get seedlings already and you're going to put them in, and make sure you have all your tools, your fertilizer, your compost, all the different things that you need, your water. I always recommend for watering that you use a shower head on the hose, because not a spray hard, a shower head, because it doesn't beat the plants up, it doesn't beat the soil up, because sometimes if you use like, full or whatever, like you end up with dirt all over the place, because when you're watering, you want to water the base of the plant. It doesn't really need it to be on the leaves or anything like that mostly. I mean, they like it, it's, because that's the rain kind of thing, but watering at the base of the plant ensures that the roots get the water that they actually need. That if you just go up above, over top, if there's too many leaves, you don't know exactly where that water is going to fall, so you can, but that's a part of getting those tools together and knowing that kind of stuff. So I think that's kind of it for the practical part. This next part is the resources. I'm going to talk a little bit about the resources, actually. Wherever you are, no matter what state you're in, there are county extension agents, and there will be urban horticulture agents that will deal with the general public with regard to all different kinds of gardening problems. Every single county and every single state has an extension office. Some are more active than others. We're very lucky here in Broward County. Our Master Gardener program is extremely active. There's hundreds of Master Gardeners. I've been a Master Gardener in Broward County for 15 years myself. Anyway, but they encourage the public to ask them any kind of questions. And if they don't know the answer, they will call you back and tell you. So I highly recommend that as a fantastic resource. I think that was my first one on the internet resources. But let me go back to, I skipped the books. So these 3 books on gardening, vegetable, specifically on vegetable and herb gardening in South Florida, are written by people who live in Southeast Florida. If any of you have lived other places, you know, it's really different everywhere else. I don't know if I could do my job up north. I don't even know how. I don't like snow. So, well, actually I do like snow, but I don't know if I want to live in it. And I would be lost up there because the seasons are completely different. The plants are completely different. You know, what you can grow up there, both ornamentally and edibly, are utterly different. So these 3 books are very specific to Florida. Back to, it's got there, the University of Florida. I can't quite see my own slide. University of Florida Institute of Food and Agricultural Services. They have an online research resource called EDIS IFAS. And you can see here there's all these different online flyers that will talk to you about Florida vegetable gardening. And they talk about more than just Southeast Florida. They break it up into South, Central, and North Florida. And it's interesting just to look through to see the differences between even North Florida and Central Florida compared to what we do here. Lots of other interesting things like organic gardening. They really talk about how to do that successfully. Insect management in the home garden. And then they have various like topics and like things that can give you a list of topics that if you're interested in specific kinds of vegetables or fruit trees or herbs, that sort of thing. Really fantastic, resource. And like I said, every county and every state also has an extension office, and it's always connected with a land grant university. So Florida's extension service is connected with the University of Florida. So all of the stuff that you find here is scientific. It's based on scientific research and testing. So I'm all about education, intelligent education, and this is the cheapest way to get an intelligent horticulture education that I can think of, is these fantastic resources that are online. And you can go down a rabbit hole because it's like there's hundreds of articles on various different things. And I highly recommend you spend some time perusing that. So a couple of other internet resources. Baker Creek Seeds is a really cool seed, heirloom seed company. They're based in Missouri. I've heard they're a little bit nuts though, but they have good seeds. I love heirloom seeds, but right now I went to their website before I did this presentation to put together this thing, and they're so busy because everybody is gardening right now that they have no seeds for sale right now. The Change is fantastic. Southern Exposure Seed Change. This particular one, Southern Exposure, specializes in southern seeds. So they specialize in seeds that can grow in our hot climates. The last few seeds that I personally bought, I bought okra, the okra that I said I wasn't paying attention to, and also Seminole pumpkins, which are pumpkins that the native Seminole Indians grew in the Everglades, and they're about yay big, and they're like a squash pumpkin, and they're really yummy, and they grow like crazy. Just need like a fence or something like that. It's like any other squash. It likes to climb. And so I got lots of interesting stuff from there. Okay, I guess there's the Broward County Extension information, and listed some local nurseries. Most of these nurseries are basically in Davie. They're all in Davie. They're all on or off Griffin Road, except for Flamingo Road Nursery, which is not far. So they all carry seedlings, so they always have herbs and vegetables and that kind of stuff, really pretty much any time. There's a lot of perennial herbs that you can grow, things like parsley, which are biennial. So biennial means that it lives for 2 growing seasons, so it'll grow 2 years. Rosemary is a perennial herb that you can grow all year round. You know, you can get all that kind of stuff there all year round. So I think that's it. That's all the information I have. Just become a gardener if you aren't already one.